She pointed at me like I was a trespasser on a stranger's lawn. "Officers, remove this man. Now." I didn't move. I didn't argue. I didn't even set down my coffee. I just watched the patrol car roll through my own front gate and waited. Because I knew something Renata Voss didn't know. Something she couldn't have known. Something that was about to make this the worst morning of her HOA presidency. I could see the cruiser door opened. A woman in a full sheriff's uniform stepped out, adjusted her duty belt, and looked from Renata to me. Then she looked back at Renata. "Ma'am," she said, calm, flat, professional. "Step away from this man's property." Renata blinked. "Excuse me? I called you. He is the trespasser. See." My daughter unclipped her badge. Not to show it. She already wore it on her chest. She unclipped it to make a point. "Ma'am, my name is Sheriff Claire Maddox. This is my father's land. His name is on the deed. Yours is not. Step away, or I will make the rest of your morning considerably more complicated. Tell me below, what would you have done standing in my shoes? And where are you watching from? Drop your state in the comments. I read everyone. My name is Walter Maddox. I'm 67 years old. Retired civil engineer. 31 years designing bridges and drainage systems for the state of Tennessee. I have one daughter. Her name is Claire. She is 38 years old, 5'9", and has been the elected sheriff of Harlan County, Tennessee for the past 6 years. I have never once called in a favor from her. Not when a neighbor's tree crushed my truck. Not when someone keyed my car in a parking lot. Not even when my property taxes were miscalculated 3 years running. I raised Claire to do her job without her father's fingerprints on it. And she raised herself into the kind of woman who arrested a sitting county commissioner for DUI and didn't lose a single minute of sleep over it. I tell you this so you understand exactly what Renata Voss walked into that morning. She thought she was calling a patrol officer. She called the wrong family entirely. The land has been in my family since 1961. 14 acres on the ridge outside Breckenfield, Tennessee. Red clay soil, cedar and hickory. A creek that runs cold even in August. My father built the house with 2 cousins and a borrowed nail gun. I grew up in that house. I carried my wife Margaret over that threshold in 1983. I buried her at the eastern edge of the property in 2019. This land is not a house to me. It is every person I have ever loved. For 40 years, the ridge was quiet. Then a developer carved up the old Greer dairy farm 2 properties over and built 58 homes. They called it Summit Ridge Estates. They formed an HOA before the ink dried on the first deed. And the woman who became its first president was Renata Voss. Renata was 54, retired marketing director from Nashville. She had moved to the ridge for the scenery and spent every day trying to make it look like the suburb she'd left behind. White Range Rover, linen in colors with names like Ecru and Champagne. Quarterly PowerPoint presentations about aesthetic cohesion. I am not exaggerating. PowerPoint slides. On a ridge where deer outnumber people 3-1. The first time she came to my property line, she had a clipboard and a smile that had been professionally maintained. "Mr. Maddox, your fencing creates a perception issue for prospective buyers." I looked at the cedar post fence my father had built in 1974. "It's a fence, ma'am." "It's a brand impression," she said. I tipped my hat and walked back to my house. That was the first conversation. There would be many more, each one a little less polite than the last. The HOA letter started in March. Gold-embossed logo. The kind of stationery that says we hired someone for this. Letter 1. My gravel driveway was a dust nuisance impacting community air quality. I had lived on this driveway for 40 years. No one had ever coughed. Filed it. Folder labeled Renata. Letter 2. My barn was a non-conforming structure visible from HOA common areas. My barn was built in 1968. It predated their entire subdivision by 53 years. Filed it. Letter 3. Certified mail. Formal violation notice for the cedar fence. Replace it with HOA-approved vinyl within 60 days. Fine of $200 per day after the deadline. I drove to Tom Aberley's office the next morning. Tom is 71, county land attorney. Reads deeds the way some men read scripture, slow and careful, like every word was placed there for a reason. He looked at the HOAs, CC&Rs. He looked at my deed. He looked at the original 1961 land patent. He set his glasses down. Walter, your property predates their HOA declaration by 60 years. These fines are not enforceable, not $1 of them. Then we're done? No, he said. People like this don't stop when they're wrong. They stop when they're embarrassed. So let's make sure when that embarrassment comes, it comes publicly, completely, and on the record. I told him to prepare a cease and desist. He had it ready by Thursday. I hand-delivered the cease and desist to Renata's door on a Friday morning. She read the first paragraph. "This is aggressive, Mr. Maddox. It's a legal document, ma'am, not a personal opinion. Our attorney will be in touch. Mine already is." Their Nashville attorney, Jeffrey Pratt, sent a 4-page response. Impressive paper. Zero legal ground. Their argument: my property created a visual impact zone on community aesthetics, and under Tennessee nuisance law, I could be compelled into visual conformity. Tom laughed. Visual impact zone. Walter, I need to remember that one for the hearing. What hearing? The one they just created. They filed for injunctive relief in circuit court. They want a judge to order you to replace your father's fence. I drove home and stood at that fence for a long time, my hand on the cedar post. 50 years of Tennessee weather in that wood. Not going anywhere. The next 4 weeks, Renata made 4 more moves. A petition. 41 signatures from residents who had never seen my property up close, claiming my fence hurt their home values. A noise complaint, claiming my tractor caused unreasonable disturbance. County inspector came out, looked at the distance between my barn and their nearest home, marked it unfounded. An animal control complaint, claiming my horses were inadequately fenced and a public safety risk. The officer spent 2 hours examining every gate latch, every water trough, every hoof. She marked it unfounded and flagged Renata's address for a pattern review. And then, a court motion asking a judge to freeze my property rights while the case was active. Tom's reaction: she's scared. Overconfident opponents make mistakes. Let her think she's winning. He was right. She was already making the biggest one. 3 weeks before the hearing, my neighbor Dorothea Birch called me. Dorothea was 74, former 4th-grade teacher, sharp as a finish nail. She had a photograph on her kitchen table, taken from her back window, looking south toward my property. 3 people standing inside my fence line, near my barn. One of them had a measuring tape. One of them was wearing ecru linen. "Last Thursday," Dorothea said, 6:15 in the morning. I called Tom. "Trespass," he said immediately. Plain and clear. And she's the one who filed a motion claiming she needs to protect the integrity of your property while the case is active. The irony. It's not irony, Walter. It's evidence. That evening, I mounted 2 trail cameras on my south fence line, motion-triggered, night vision, cellular upload. 4 days later, at 5:48 a.m., my phone buzzed. Motion alert. I opened the footage. 2 figures at my fence line, one with a camera, one pointing toward the barn. I called Tom at 6 a.m. He called the sheriff's non-emergency line at 6:05. By the time the deputy arrived, they were gone. But the footage was time-stamped, uploaded, and backed up in 3 locations. Second trespass report, filed. Folder getting thick. 2 weeks before the hearing, Renata announced a community property standards walk. A group of board members and selected residents would walk the perimeter of Summit Ridge Estates, documenting aesthetic compliance issues. The route, printed in the HOA newsletter, included what she called the adjacent non-conforming property corridor. My property. She was going to trespass in a group. Scheduled. Announced. Documented. Tom called it the most self-destructive move he had seen in 20 years of HOA law. His instructions to me: post no trespassing signs on every fence post. Have the cameras running. Be home Saturday morning. And don't do anything dramatic. I spent Thursday afternoon posting signs. Red and white. State standard. Every 12 feet. Friday evening I called Claire. Our usual Sunday call, moved up a day. We talked about the grandkids. The creek running high. The hickory I'd dropped for firewood. At the end she asked, like always, "Dad, you need anything?" I said, "There might be a call to your office from a Summit Ridge HOA address Saturday morning." Silence. Then, "I'll take it personally." "You don't have to." "Dad." "Yes, ma'am," I said. Saturday, 8:15 a.m. Renata arrived at my front gate with 7 people behind her. Board members, 2 residents, Jeffrey Pratt, a man with a camera rig. I was on my porch with my coffee. She smiled the way she always smiled. The smile of a woman who has never seriously considered losing. "Good morning, Mr. Maddox. We're conducting our community standards review. You're at my gate, not on a public road. The court motion covers." The court motion is a filing, not a ruling. No judge has granted you access to my property. Jeffrey Pratt stepped forward. "As a matter of practicality, as a matter of Tennessee law," I said, "you are standing at the entrance to posted private property. If any of you cross this gate, I will call law enforcement." Renata looked at me the way she always had, like a slow child who hadn't yet understood that she'd already won. "Fine," she said. "I'm calling the police myself." She pulled out her phone. I said nothing. I sipped my coffee, and I waited. 8:34 a.m. The cruiser came up Summit Ridge Road. Not a patrol car, a sheriff's vehicle. Harlan County seal on the door. Light bar catching the morning sun. It turned into my driveway. Claire stepped out. Full uniform. Pressed khaki. Badge bright. Duty belt settled like she was born wearing it. She has her mother's jaw, her mother's patience, her mother's way of reading a room in 3 seconds flat. She looked at Renata's group. She looked at me. She looked back at Renata. I received a call about a trespassing situation. Who called? Renata stepped forward, full confidence. I did. This man is obstructing a legally authorized HOA review. We need him. Who owns this property? The HOA has a pending motion that... Who owns this property? Silence. Jeffrey Pratt tried. Sheriff, there's an active civil matter in circuit court. Mr. Pratt, counsel for Summit Ridge Estates, HOA. Mr. Pratt, has a judge issued an order granting your clients access to this property? A pause, 1 beat too long. A ruling is pending. That's a no. She turned back to Renata. Ma'am, a pending motion is not an order. You are standing at the entrance to posted private property. The owner has asked you to leave. If you cross this gate, I will arrest you for criminal trespass under Tennessee Code annotated 39-14-405. Renata stared. I want your badge number. It's on my chest. You can also find me at the Harlan County Sheriff's Office, where I am the elected sheriff. The recognition was slow. Her eyes moved from Claire to me. Back to Claire, to the name on the door of the vehicle. Sheriff C. Maddox. Maddox, she said quietly. Yes, ma'am, Claire said. Same as his. Jeffrey Pratt put his hand on Renata's arm. He had the look of a lawyer watching his billable hours disappear. Renata, we should go. The group was already backing toward their cars. The cameraman had put his lens cap on. Renata looked at me one final time. I raised my coffee cup. She turned, walked to her Range Rover. Door closed, engine started. White SUV reversed down my driveway and disappeared. Claire walked up to the porch and sat in the chair that used to be her mother's. I poured her a cup of coffee. We sat there together, watching the cedar fence hold the property line the way it always had. You knew, she said. I had a feeling. You could have told me. You would have offered to help. I would have, she said. I know, I said. That's why I didn't. The hearing was 12 days later. Tom walked in with 3 trespass reports, trail camera footage, Dorothea's photographs, and Saturday morning on the record. He also walked in with something Jeffrey Pratt had not seen coming. an independent survey of my property. The survey confirmed something buried in the 1961 land patent all along. The cedar fence was not just on my property. It was 6 inches inside my property line. Renata's HOA had, in their own filings, incorrectly described the fence's location, placing it partly on HOA common area, which formed the entire basis of their jurisdiction claim. Their argument was built on their own drafting error. Jeffrey Pratt requested a continuance. The judge denied it. She ruled from the bench. Injunction denied. All fines declared unenforceable. HOA ordered to pay my legal costs. Trespass documentation referred to the county attorney. My father's fence remained standing. Every post, every rail, every inch of cedar, exactly where he put it in 1974. The county attorney reviewed the trespass files. Renata was cited for criminal trespass. Her attorney negotiated it to a civil infraction. She paid the fine. She signed an acknowledgement that she had entered private property without authorization. Jeffrey Pratt's firm withdrew from Summit Ridge HOA 2 weeks later. At the next HOA meeting, which Dorothea attended as a legal observer, 11 homeowners formally called for Renata's resignation. She held on 4 more months. At the spring election, she received 9 votes. A retired county road engineer named Harold Fitch received 43. Harold's first act as president was to send me a handwritten note. Mr. Maddox, on behalf of Summit Ridge Estates, I apologize for how our previous board treated you and your property. Your fence is a fine fence. Please let us know if we can ever be good neighbors. I filed that note in a new folder. I labeled it Harold. Claire came home for Thanksgiving. Son-in-law, both grandkids. We ate at the long table Margaret picked out in 1987. The one that seats 10 when there are only 5 of us. After dinner, my grandson, 9 years old, asked about the fence. Kids always hear pieces of these things. Grandpa, were you ever scared? I thought about it honestly. Not scared, I said. Tired some days, angry some days, but not scared. Why not? I looked at Claire across the table. She was cutting pie, pretending not to listen. Because the land has been here longer than the problem, I said. And so have we. He thought about it. Then he asked for more pie. Which was the right answer? The cedar fence is still standing. My father set those posts in 1974. In Tennessee, red cedar, properly set and treated, a post will outlast the man who planted it by 50 years or more. I check it every morning on my rounds. Run my hand along the rails. Count the posts. Every one of them still there. Here is what Renata Voss never understood. She thought this was a dispute about a fence. It was never about a fence. It was about whether a woman with a clipboard and a PowerPoint presentation could tell a man that his father's work didn't belong on his father's land. The answer, in Harlan County, Tennessee, in a court of law, with a surveyor's report and a cedar fence that was standing before Renata Voss was born, is no. The answer is no. Check your deed. Know your property line. Keep your documents. Keep your patience. And if you ever find yourself standing on your own land while someone tells you that you don't belong there, wait for the cruiser door to open. You never know who might step out. If this story felt like yours, if you've had a board president or a Karen try to take something that was never hers, drop your story in the comments. Tell me your state. Tell me your county. I read every single one. Some of them become the next script. And if you want to hear about the HOA in coastal Georgia that seized a family's private dock for community access, and the marine engineer who quietly rerouted the entire tidal drainage system overnight, hit subscribe. That one goes up next Friday. Thank you for being here. From the Ridge.